Call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Carla, would you please do the roll, please?
Robert Mueller.
Here.
Nina Freiler.
Here.
John Braun.
Here.
Beth Caldwell.
Here.
Stephanie Gruminger.
Here.
Kelly Fowler. Laura Oliver.
Here.
Michael Hankins.
Here.
Jack Dunsey. Joe Steiger. We have a quorum.
Thank you. You have before you the agenda for today. Are there any additions or to this agenda? Good morning, Stephanie.
Here.
Second by Stephanie. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Approval of minutes from the previous meeting. That should be in your packet. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Or do you need a few more minutes? Motion by Stephanie to approve the minutes. Second by Jan. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Are there any citizens to be heard? No, so we'll move on. Stephanie, would you like to give your report then?
Yes. Real quick handout here. This is the budget that is proposed currently as it stands for the Welcome Center. Now, a lot of this involves just building operations, and that's not a just what we need to do in order to move forward. The Board of Aldermen at the last meeting, Board of Aldermen meeting, decided that after all of the meetings and having had the budget since July, that they now want to go line by line and cut as much as they possibly can. We currently have been cut down to $30,000 in marketing, and this is of great concern. And I'll go into that a little further in the report, just to give you a heads up of what this is and what's going on. The report that I provide to the Board of Aldermen, I will be giving at next week's meeting. Last week I was in Kansas City for the Governor's Conference on Tourism. It was a very good conference to go to. One thing that's really nice that the Missouri Department of Tourism, as well as the MACVB, which is the Missouri Association of Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the Missouri Travel Council, which are two major overriding organizations at the state level, but there's a lot of benefit to the individual tourism entities and CVBs to be members of these groups. They provide additional education information that you just can't get unless you're at one of these types of meetings. So it was a very good meeting. One thing that was brought up at this meeting, this year the Missouri State Co-op was nearly cut from the budget. And there is not a lot of optimism that it is going to be a program in place next year. So this nice $25,000 match that we receive as a part of the cooperative grant very well may go away next year. What this means in terms of the budget. If we are going to be stuck at $30,000 in marketing expenses for next year, that is not going to be enough if we're on our own. I will say that right now $30,000 to market an entire year for the city is not enough. So this is something that we need to get involvement from the wineries, and the wineries are great. The downtown businesses, the lodging facilities. You guys are the ones who rely on more than just 25 events that occur in a year. You rely on the other 340 days to be able to run the business, and they do as well. They need to make a presence known to the Board of Aldermen to let them know that tourism is a vital economic driver for the downtown region. Board of Aldermen is also preparing to create a new committee for downtown development. And we already have one facet of that available, and that is tourism and in the marketing that we have. So going forward, that is something that we really need to keep in mind and keep into consideration. We are getting to that time to where we need to start thinking about what we want to do as far as the application for the fiscal year 14 budget with the co-op. That will be due on January 1st. So we need to start working on that now. We need to think 2014. 2013 is already in the bag as far as the co-op is concerned. Quarter one of fiscal year 13 advertising has already been done and sent and approved. I have one more ad left for quarter two that needs to be done and in the bag, and that's due in 30 days. So I've been working with Kim, and that won't be an issue. But the reason why I kind of give these dates and these times and to let you know where we're at is how far in advance we need to be thinking as far as advertising and marketing is concerned. Some really good things that we have had occur here lately. Last year, the Missouri Department of Tourism advised me of this top 10 coolest small towns in America. They made me aware of the program. I applied, I submitted all of the information, and City of St. Genevieve was chosen as one of the top 10 coolest towns in America. The magazine just released it. They advertised this in their September magazine, so it just came out. We've had a lot of really good response from just that magazine, but it was also carried on FoxNews.com picked it up, and they had it on their travel page. The National NBC.com had it on their website. Locally, Channel 12 had some stuff on their website, and from what I understand, they also did a segment. Channel 5 News in St. Louis ran a segment on St. Genevieve being one of the top 10 coolest cities, small towns in America. We could not have even come close to getting this financially. Just to get the exposure that we had in Budget Travel Magazine would have cost us $15,000, both through the magazine and the online. And that would have been nowhere near at this level. This would have been little small things. These are things that I do outside of my regular duties and having relationships with these people, relationship with the state, that get these to occur. Now, in addition to this, there was an online social media voting, and that is what put us in our placement. So there's the top 10, we're number 9, and that was a result of the voting that was done via the Facebook and the budgettravel.com website. Was on the radio with Don Pritchard. Went and met with him before we left and gave thanks to everybody who voted. Have given thanks out on the Facebook to let everyone know that we appreciate it. In addition to that, exposure and the work that I have done and the relationships that I have with Group Tour Magazine, the newest issue, their fall issue, just came out, and Missouri is featured, or St. Genevieve, I apologize, is featured. We are the first of the Missouri, in the Missouri section, have this really nice article. They sent me a PDF that we can now use in print. The only requirement, we have to have this on one side if we are going to use this really nice write-up and 2-page itinerary. This will come in helpful when we go to the groups and when I send out the group packets.
Can you send that to everybody on the committee, please?
Absolutely. And so, here's the Group Tour Magazine, very nice write-up, and then I'll email that out to everybody so they can take a look at it.
Who subscribes? Is that a travel agent magazine, or who
This
is
is
getting that?
This goes out to group tour operators. So anyone who is involved with seniors groups, bank tour groups, boomers and groups. There's a lot of niche markets within the group tours. This is who this goes to. And these are the ones who will bring in, we just had a bus yesterday of 30 people that were from Bank Tour, Mid-America Bank. So that's one example. they can range anywhere from 30 to 50 in a bus, depending upon their groups. These folks come in, for the most part, and spend money. They eat at restaurants, they go through the houses, and yesterday we were able to sneak in a 2-hour shopping spree. So hopefully that was really good for the downtown. Station 2 was fantastic and provided the lunches. And they wound up, we had some issues with finding a location for them to eat. The Linden House was wonderful. They opened up their inside of their house and their porches and set up tables so that everyone would have a place to eat. Just because if there's a size limit and Station 2 has a business to run in addition to the group. So I'm very excited. Thank you, Beth. I appreciate all the work you did on
Thanks
that.
to you and Leslie for getting the Linden House squared away.
Was that the bus that had Peoria written on the side of it?
It was the big Red Road Mid-America bus. There was another small group that came through.
I mean, I just happened to see the Peoria bus.
Yeah, that was a smaller group that came in. They did not organize with us ahead of time.
Who gave us the top 10?
Budget Travel.
Budget Travel magazine. It's a national magazine.
So do they give us some kind of stock logo or something that we can use in our advertising, or is it too late to get it on some of your,
I was gonna ask the same
like at
thing,
the
have
bottom
we
of our
capitalized?
ads?
We note it. It's an award that we received. I haven't gotten the information from them yet. And I also haven't set up any advertising because I don't know what my budget is going to be. So.
But it's something that can be added.
It is something that can be added. And I mean, it's something that we can add to our website, just as we have the Preserve America Award and distinctive destinations, and that is something that we can add to.
I mean, that sounds pretty prominent. I mean, that's exciting.
It is very exciting. Just their website alone has 1 million hits per day. That's per day. So, I mean, this is.
And then plus the links from Fox News and NBC News and how many people see those.
Exactly. That just.
Are you
and
going to
that's
put
the
those
advertisement.
links to those, if somebody's done
It's
an
already been
article
added to the website.
to the media page?
Yes. And then their print, which has 2.3 million readers for their print magazine. And I apologize, let me correct. They have 10 million average monthly page views. It's not 1 million a day, it's 10 million average readers. Going on, quick update on Jour de Fête. Have not had our follow-up meeting for the Jour de Fête from this past year. It'll be the first Thursday in October. So I don't have any of the numbers as far as expenses and what money was made or not. But it was extraordinarily well attended. We had a lot of people in town that I talked to as far as the businesses, that it was one of the best days or one of the top 3 best days that they have ever had. So we had a good participation, not only with the vendors, but also with our restaurants and with our merchants and our boutiques. The vendors were absolutely thrilled. Every single one that I talked to, several of them had to leave Saturday evening because they completely ran out of stock. We had 10 that I can think of off the top of my head that had family members bring in more because they sold so much on Saturday. They had not anticipated. So that was a fantastic turnout. Very excited about that. So visitors to the website, we did not count Jour de Fête weekend simply because we're not able to keep track. There's too many people. So individual visitors to the Welcome Center for the month of August was 1,936, which is last year we had 1,980. So it was a 2%, but when you're looking at where we are at calendar year to date, we are still dead even with where we were in 2011. We did not have any organized group tours through the Welcome Center in August, though we did have quite a few group tours that came in on their own. If they don't organize through, and not all of them do, some of them prefer not to do that, there's no way for us to track that.
So how do we know that the number of other ones came through? How do you keep track of that?
Are you talking to people? Actually, I know we've had groups come through and they just kind of do their own thing. There really is no way to do that.
When you talk to them, is there a way to gather information about contact info for future tours, anything like that, or do we do anything like that?
No, we don't chase people down, and I mean, ultimately, that's what we would have to do, is chase them down and try
Well,
to find out where they're
do you
at.
talk, I mean, to know that they're here, someone must be talking to them.
More often than not, we find out the information after the fact, and it's folks who are talking to, say, Bev Donzi. We're in here with this group. We have a group of 11 coming in today that they called and said, hey, we're gonna be in town, is anything gonna be open? So we were able to get on that one, we were able to get some information. But short of, tracking them down and harassing them, which I guess we could do that, but it's not
That's
something I
not,
recommend.
Just
No,
trying to figure out if there are ways to
I'm sure
capture.
there's some, but as far as getting all of that kind of detailed information, if it's a one-time thing or they're just traveling through, I mean, we have one today, it's an RV group, it's traveling through, they're doing the Great River Road, they don't plan on coming back through. They travel in packs. But if there's some way that someone can think of that we can do it where it's not in an invasive manner that affects their experience, then, yeah, we could probably.
Would the
figure something out.
restaurants, I mean, typically they would eat lunch here, or
But they don't always do it
something.
together.
Oh.
And they also don't always mention it. I mean, it'll be one of those things where I'll see a huge bus going through as they're, heading out of town,
Right.
and they didn't mention it to anybody. But I know
But
that
if
people
they're
in town.
checking out, I mean, you think if we got all the restaurants on board and as they're checking out, are you from this area? Or did you just come in for the day, or maybe just a short little, they don't have to give their name or anything, just
Right.
maybe something like that. I don't know.
That's an option, but I don't know if the restaurants would
I don't know
be doing that
either.
with every single person that checks out. I mean, if it's someone that they don't recognize,
Right.
and then staff remembering to do that and staff training.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have that level of service available in St. Genevieve.
We all try to ask, if we see somebody walk in with one of the visitor guides, we say where they're from, where are you from, what are you doing today, what are you looking for? But if they're part of a group like that,
Yeah.
and maybe just a few of them come in, there's no way we can know.
Yeah, that's true. And there would be duplication if they went to several places. You don't want to. I don't know. That's a tough one.
And that's not something that's unique to St. Genevieve. I mean, that's
Uh-huh.
every town, from our size, even smaller, to City of St. Louis. I mean, groups go through all the time, and there's no way of being able to track that accurately. Another thing, I met with a gentleman who is a representative for the American Queen. That's the new boat that they have traveling on the Mississippi River. He came into town, came through in the spring. We did not have enough water for them to dock here in St. Genevieve. They were able to dock in Chester, and they really like that, and they plan on sticking with that. But what they want to do is bring a bus into town for 4 hours, 4 hours, come in, see a site, walk with him through town, let him go through a few places on his own, and, just for information purposes, he was pretty harsh in his assessment of what we had to offer. The level of guests that they have on their boat spends over $500 a day just to be on the boat. And so when he came into town and he walked through some of the stores and he was looking at the gardens and looking at some of the houses, he was like, we cater to a very upscale, and there are very few places here in St. Genevieve. So that would be something else that maybe we can look in the future of trying to find some way to provide a higher level of service, or maybe clean up a few things and see if we can't, cater to that crowd. He's not looking for anything until 2013, which most of the groups are going to be doing that.
Did he give you some specifics? I know this is just one man's opinion, but it's always interesting to get critique.
He did, and based on 25 years of his experience in the business, he knows what he's talking about. I'd rather not go and name specific places in a public manner, just because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But I mean, there were quite a few places, here's one place that we can go to do this, and here's one, absolutely not. I'm not going to take my people into that. And I mean, it's so picky as the metal screen door on a building. No. Looking at some of the historic houses, he was very clear. Even though, yes, we have significant architecture, and yes, we have some very special sites, his response was, you've seen one historic house, you've seen them all. And that's the viewpoint of the group that he works with. So, are there things that we can do? Absolutely. But we need to get a mindset moving in a direction of you know, if we want to bring those kind of folks in, which is who we want, because they spend money, then there's things that we need to do is just to improve service, to improve timely service. You know, and this has actually become an issue with quite a few of the groups that we've brought in, where they may go into a restaurant to eat, and what was slotted for a 1 hour so they could have 2 hours of shopping becomes a 2.5 hours stuck in the restaurant, and then they can't even go and do the shopping. So, you know, there's things that need to be done just within the individual businesses in town that need to be addressed in order for us to really be able to focus and care, because what these folks will now do is they will go back to their groups. One, they won't bring anyone back, and group tour operators talk amongst each other. Have you ever been to St. Genevieve? Yes, I did, and this was my experience. That's going to affect any other potential future business. So we can go and talk and be as nice as we want to and try to get them here, but if they have a bad experience and they go back and talk negatively about it, that's going to affect any other businesses that we may be able to bring in as far as group tour operators. So that's,
When you get negative comments that we're not gonna talk about publicly, do you go back to those businesses on a one-on-one basis and tell them what those people observed and said, so that they've gotta know if they're not doing something right and have the opportunity to fix it?
I have. Now, with this gentleman's meeting this week, no, I have not had the opportunity to go and do that. But yes, I do. And then I've also talked to a lot of businesses and with their frustrations of, you know, I'm just not making the sales, or I'm just not doing that, and I've offered suggestions to them. Some of them have made the changes, and they're doing very well. Others are fighting a little bit. So it's a matter of if they're receptive to it or not. One of the places I went to, I tried to have a conversation and proceeded to get yelled at. Don't tell me how to do my business. You know, so then does that become, and this would be one of the things that I discussed with some of the other CBBs while I was at the meeting, or at the meetings, you know, how do you handle this? Well, a lot of them provide 2 opportunities. If you cannot follow within the 2 opportunities, we are not going to recommend you for our group tours. With that being said, a lot of them don't have buildings where there are multiple steps with group tours coming in with mobility issues. We don't have elevators in our buildings. So, you know, if we wind up, you know, cutting off our nose to spite our face with some of the local businesses that are more accessible to people with mobility issues, you know, suddenly, I mean, this is another issue that we have to deal with. As far as, you know, I mean, how we're going to manage the business. You know, for the Anvil, they have to be able to go up the stairs. Anvil is great, fantastic. We get really good responses from them. But when we have people who can't even walk from the Welcome Center to the Bolduc House, you know, they're not going to be able to make it upstairs. So, I mean, these are things that need to be thought about and considered. And when it comes to group tours, you know, not only reaching out to these folks, but we need to make sure that within our own system and within what we're wanting to do, that we're prepared and that we can handle and provide these guys good experience so they'll go back and have positive responses, especially within the bank travel. Those guys talk, and one bad experience can absolutely kill you. One other thing that was brought up, and this kind of goes back with the conversation that was held several times at the governor's conference, with the loss of, a potential loss of the co-op. They're really encouraging communities to reach out to other communities and set up, especially the smaller ones who don't have more than 1 day, full day to provide, or don't have the accommodations for people to stay overnight. You know, reaching out. And we have some fantastic opportunities to do that. We have a lot of really good French historical over on the Illinois side of the river. We can work with Farmington. We can work with other areas, counting the wineries. It's very important that we do that. There was another education system seminar that I went to, was with a woman who ran bank group tours. She was one of the first ones to organize this, did it over 30 years. And she was located in Knoxville, Tennessee. And she was talking about some of these smaller towns where there are less than 100 people who live in the town with only 1 or 2 things that they have to be seen. They networked and made partnerships with the surrounding communities so that they could bring in a bus and do something special and unique. And this is something, these types of experiences, people are craving that now. The area and tourism that's growing is the cultural tourism. They're wanting to have that experience. They're not wanting to go and do the all-inclusive and feel like they didn't get anything for their money. They're wanting, you know. So we have an opportunity here. We have a fantastic product, and I think we can be seen as an anchor for a lot of the surrounding communities. So I mean, I think that's something that we need to make sure that we have that type of attitude when it comes to working with the other groups, working with the other communities, working with the wineries, especially when we go into the fall, and I go, or in the wintertime, and I go back to the county and ask for them to help fund, and they've provided funding last year and the year before. Hopefully they'll do it again. We have some new commissioners. I'm not quite sure how that's going to go. But, you know, if they're making an effort and we have the wineries who make an effort, then we absolutely need to make sure that we reach out and lose the attitude of just here only. That's going to hurt us in the long run. And that was made pretty clear. And it's kind of a no-brainer when you think about it.
When do you plan to make the pitch to the county commission?
That occurs in December.
In December?
Mm-hmm.
I just encourage you to look at the data off of our website, show them how many referrals we have done.
I have done all of that. I provide a complete packet that I provide.
Okay.
And it
And
shows
show
all
them
that
the
information.
ads. Look how many of our ads have been winery directed as opposed to.
The packet that I provide to them looks almost identical to the one that I provide to the state co-op. So it has copies of ads, it has the numbers, I bring in the tax numbers, and these guys look through it. And for the fact that, I don't know if no one has ever approached them prior, but I have been able to get them to pay. And granted, it's only $5,000, but, you know,
It's
can-
not
I can
included
set
in
up a cut.
that current marketing dollars. That's
No,
correct.
we cannot add it to the budget until they provide it. It has to go through as a budget amendment if they provide it. Now, on the marketing, going to, back to the marketing, and that was kind of my segue into that, is that we need to kind of look, if we're only gonna be provided 30,000, we have got
Just a
to.
minute, there's 30,000 in that budget, there's another 50,000 in the co-op grant,
Mhm.
and there's tourism tax commission dollars that all go towards our marketing effort and
Well, I am
advertising.
not going to guarantee that the tax commission is going to provide and have the program that works with what.
Mike, I thought the tax commission's already said it was gonna be 16,500 or something like that
But they
this year.
haven't decided how it's going to be spent.
It's still towards marketing of what we're doing. Is that not correct, or is it for something else?
It is for something else, but if they decide to go in a direction that is not a part of our marketing plan, you know, and I've heard quite a few people saying quite a few different things in the directions they want to go. And I haven't had any really clear direction as to what they actually want. So I provided an action plan, and it seems like they were not happy with that. So, you know, depending upon which way they want to go, I'm not going to count on that. Last year, they kind of wanted to do their own thing. I have a feeling they're going to kind of want to do their own thing again this year. And that's fine, it's their funding that
But
they
in
can
terms
choose.
of marketing St. Genevieve and St. Genevieve County, that's part of what we're doing here.
But if our goal is to get overnight stays, and we're only going to market within a 60-mile radius, we are not going to get overnight stays in a 60-mile radius. And the funding was approved so late that I only had maybe 6 months worth of advertising to use for last year. And when you look at the grand scheme, even if you add the 16 to the 30, 46 is still not enough. My original request was for 75,000. That's not enough. You know, when you look at the cost of advertising, advertising is not cheap. If you want to get into the magazines, into the publications, where you can have a decent enough size ad that people can read it, and it's going to actually attract the people you want to attract, that costs serious money. A single ad can cost $2,500. Now with the co-op, we have to be very careful and make sure that all of that can be tracked so that when I report, there's numbers that they can then take. But we can't count on that money for fiscal year 14. And the fiscal year 13, it's already set. We can make changes to it. They really frown on that. What was provided to them was approved. They thought it was a good, solid marketing plan. They thought it was a good, solid action plan. So for us to go back and change it, that can affect us.
The other
But-
thing in your budget, I think I'm glad to see this year is the $3,000 for conferences and travel shows and travel to those, because that wasn't in last year's budget. And I think that's important
And
that you
that's-
do attend those and do promote St. Genevieve at those things.
And I appreciate the support on that. Those are vital parts of the budget. There is a meeting Monday night with the Board of Aldermen in a work session, and they plan on cutting everything they possibly can out of my budget, is what I have been told and the impression I've been given. And if it wasn't in my budget last year, they're not going to see reason to have it in this year. There are a lot of things in the budget that were cut that I have paid out of my own pocket. And looking at the numbers and seeing how much I have paid out of my own personal pocket this year, I'm a little aggravated, because I know those questions are going to come up. And looking at it, there's over $3,000 that I can look up off the bat that I've paid for. And that's not right. I'm an employee of the city. I should not have to pay city expenses out of my own personal income. So I am not expecting Monday night to go well. So anyone who can come, support, promote.
Is that open to the public?
It should be open to the public. It's announced. They put up a schedule.
Okay.
And then the Board of Aldermen meeting on Thursday night, they're going to have to do, if there are any changes to the budget, they're going to have to do a new first reading and a second reading, because it has to be passed by October 1st. But especially businesses in the downtown. We have one Board of Aldermen who only wants to focus in on Jour de Fête. That's 2 days out of an entire year. You can't run a business based off of a single weekend in a year. This is something that has to be done and has to be funded. It has to be more than just saying, yeah, we want tourism. You have to actually fund it. You said you wanted it, you've hired a professional, you have 2 committees that are trying to work to do it, you're going to create another committee for downtown development, but you're not funding it. It needs to be funded. And that's the biggest thing that the message just doesn't seem, people can come to me and tell me their feelings, and I appreciate that. I love getting the positive responses because I get a lot of negative from other places. So hearing the individual business owner coming in saying, Steph, you're doing a great job, business is going really well, best weekend ever, we're doing even better than we were last year, that's fantastic. But they actually need to show up and talk to the people who decide how much money goes into the budget, and that's the Board of Aldermen. And they need to come to the Tourism Advisory Council and to the Tax Commission meetings and let people know things are going in the right direction. So if there are any questions specifically in the budget, I did include going to the shows, going to the various meetings. I also have included funding for familiarization trips. When a group calls, says I'm interested, they want to come and see the product first. I do not feel comfortable asking a bed and breakfast or a lodging facility to comp a room when they're a small business. I don't feel comfortable asking a restaurant to comp food. This is something that I've paid out of my own pocket so that we can get business. But they're not going to sell an unknown to their clients. They want to come and see it first. So familiarization trips, absolutely important, not only for that, but for travel writers, for bloggers, for bringing in anyone. I had a request from the state. They're going to be filming commercials in St. Genevieve this weekend. They wanted to know if we could help out with some lodging for the people flying in from California. And I had to tell them no. One, I know a lot of the places are booked, but they're wanting it comped. The city can't afford to pay the bed and breakfast, and I don't think it's fair. I think the opportunity cost is too high to expect any of these guys to comp a room. So that's another thing that's in the budget that I'm sure is going to receive quite a bit of questioning from the Board of Aldermen.
Are they still coming to film, even though?
Yes, they're actually going to go to Farmington. Farmington was willing to work with them.
What else are you worried about what other lines on here are you most concerned about that you don't want to lose?
Anything involving marketing and travel expenses. If I'm traveling for the city, I think my lodging and mileage should be reimbursed. That is pretty much a norm for any business and city entity.
I don't
For
think
some reason,
reimburse.
is there an extra one of the?
One of the
Yeah,
budgets?
I think I handed out my
Don't
copy.
they reimburse the regular city employees for mileage?
That's my understanding, but it wasn't in my budget this year. Martin did approve the conference. Next week, I'm going to be going to another conference in Indiana. But all of those are going to come out of the fiscal year 13 budget. Next week, I'm traveling to Indianapolis for a conference. It's the Tour and Travel Research Association. It's an international association. They have meetings all throughout internationally. The United States, it's called the United States. This is an event that's highly encouraged by the MACBB and the MTC and the Department of Tourism for the state in order to be able to research and travel and tourism and providing the information, the numbers.
And they don't reimburse your mileage to and from those conferences?
They will be if the budget is approved. Now Martin did approve these two conferences, but I have gone to other meetings throughout the year with MACBB where it's out of my pocket.
Was it requested of the city before you went, and they said no?
I was told it's not in my budget. That's my response that I get. This money was requested. Last year when we went to sit down for the budget time, the co-op was put into the budget, but they did not allow me to increase the bottom line. And then there were a few other items that were added into my budget where I was not allowed to increase the bottom line. I had to state a prior year's numbers. And in order to have any type of program, I had to take money out of things such as janitorial supplies and take out the familiarization trips.
There is that ability to move stuff around.
No, there's not.
I thought Martin told me there was. But
Martin has been pretty clear with me that we can't do that. I can't do that.
So should business owners choose to support Stephanie, they can go to that meeting, but as we as a council, can we set, if we decide that we want to support certain lines on here, can we send something to the alderman or make a recommendation?
Well, I mean, I think
I think some of these things are pretty important, and it sounds like you're pretty confident they're going to get nixed.
With I plan on Monday not being a very pretty evening for me. And I'll do it. I am the department head, and I will stand up and I will defend the budget as requested, and do the best that I can. But they have their mind set, and if they don't have other people coming in saying, hey, this is extremely important to me as my business, or to the town as a whole and to the downtown,
I just think if we're a tourism council and if we think some of these things are important enough, then and we should support tourism and support Stephanie on a couple of these things.
What time is that on Monday?
6 o'clock.
Here?
well, I think definitely we should support the travel, the familiarization tours. That's really $7,500 of this thing. The big issue is how much do you put in for printing, probably is a big one next year with the additional brochure or the revision of the brochure. And that should be supported. The big question is how much money does the city have to spread across their whole business, and how much is the city going to spend on advertising?
Right.
And it ends up in several budgets.
Advertising.
It shows up here, it shows up in co-op down below. It used to be in general revenue. This year it's in your budget. The
Last
city
year it
is.
was in my budget.
Pardon?
Last year it was in my budget too.
The revenue side.
Oh, yeah, the revenue side is finally, 60,000 of the money on this budget does not come from general revenue. Passports, we have the matching grant, and then we have the water, soda, Gatorade sales, items for resale. So these are things that they are not charged out of general revenue. That comes from outside sales that we bring in that wouldn't occur if we didn't have this program in place.
I think those revenues more or less pay for the expenses.
Correct.
On those sides, and they don't show those revenues in your budget. They show up in general revenue, unfortunately. I never have understood that method of
And I don't, I've questioned it last year, this year, and
I've mentioned that to Martin and Dick both.
I get a brick
Like in
wall.
tourism tax commission, your revenues are shown at the top, your expenses are shown at the bottom. We don't do that in tourism.
and it absolutely should be. But, the main area, as far as my operating for my building, those I can, those I have the backup for that. But when it comes to the marketing and it comes to the familiarization tours, it comes to the travel and trade shows and
Those are the intangibles that are hard to,
Exactly. I mean, there's no way I can come back and say, I know that there's an increase, but it's not something that you can go down to the penny with. One trade show that I went to in particular that panned out really well for us last year was the Going on Faith Tour. I came back, I had 6 groups booked on Monday, and that was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday conference. And that's significant. I wasn't able to go to that this year, so we didn't have that representation. Probably won't be able to go to it next year. I think it's in Jacksonville, Florida. So I'm going to have to kind of pick and choose what we go to, because some of these, they're kind of going more toward that East Coast. And, when it's all said and done, I'll have to see what we can and can't do. But there's some local, regional, Missouri Travel Conference has some with the banks. And those will be the kind of shows that will be good to go through that we can hopefully pick some groups from. But now I was talking to a few other folks about that Going on Faith, and I was telling them, hey, I had 6 groups booked. And they were like, really? We got 2. So, we're of interest. And then just with the Church of St. Genevieve and with Holy Cross Lutheran Church, we have a great history that would be interested to them, or interesting to those groups. Kind of going through, looking at others. So travel, lodging, meeting and conferences. Tour expenses should not be an issue because that's money in, money out. Familiarization trips, that's bringing in, and that's not near what it should be.
are those like the site tours?
Site tours, travel writers, bloggers, and bloggers are actually becoming a pretty important influence within the travel communities.
Unfortunately.
Just, the big ticket items are obviously printing and marketing. The rest of it is, I don't want to minimize the fact that $3,000 is a little amount. It's not that much in comparison to these 2 big items.
But let me, before you go, the Board of Aldermen meeting, they wanted to take $400 out of postage for the courts. They wanted to take the $2,000 that the city budgeted for infrastructure on this building. So yes, they are going to look at those little dollar amounts.
And people answered the questions what those was for.
They're still wanting to take them out.
Of the 20,000, how much is going to be for printing of the new brochure?
There is 15,000 set aside in that for printing of the brochures, 100,000 brochures.
The last time we printed it was like 8,500. Are we doubling the amount, or is the price doubled essentially?
We have greatly increased the amount that we're going to print, is what that boils down to. If we're going to go and we're going to be more aggressive, we have people that are calling and writing as a part of this budget travel. We've had an increase in people who are asking for the visitor's guide, and we try to promote going to the website as much as we possibly can. But when you were looking at a 55 and age plus demographic, they don't like computers.
It would be helpful
want that
sometime
tangible.
I saw on one of the minutes a year or so ago, you were talking about how many hard leads you get, and I assume hard leads come from these sort of things and from print advertising. That's data that says these are the kinds of people, this is what it's generating, and I think if we sell it rather in those kind of terms, it would be much better. When you
And
go
that
to the-
information was provided, because that's a part of the end of the year report that I have to provide to the state. So the prior advisory council got a copy of that report. Board of Aldermen got a copy of that report. The information is out there. It's if people choose to read it, and I can't force people to read. Just like we put information in the paper, it goes on the radio, it goes on the TV, it goes on the internet. People don't look or listen, outside of knocking on 4,000 doors, which I don't have time to do.
I have a question. On the hard leads, do you have a comparison of 12 as opposed to 11?
Yes, all of that is kept separate.
Are the hard leads up?
Yes, and they're
Okay,
actually, they're up.
Are they do you keep track of them by magazine?
Yes.
And could you share some of that with us sometime?
Well, but
Some of the information might be considered proprietary. If people are providing their personal information,
No, I'm not talking about that kind of data.
as far as the numbers, yeah. When I have-
we advertise in Missouri Life. How many hard leads?
you don't receive hard leads from Missouri Life.
Or whatever magazines that we get hard leads from.
I have all of that information.
But my question
And that
is,
is provided, like
do
I
you,
said.
do you have to respond to the hard leads?
Yes, every single one,
Okay,
if we went to
and
business.
if you're in the grant requires hard leads.
Yes,
So we're putting up 25,000 and they're putting up 25,000, the state.
mhm,
If we're paying for the 25,000 out of your budget to get another 25, to get these hard leads, the hard leads is coming out of, the response is coming out of your budget then
mhm.
for the hard leads. Why would the city be upset that she's gotten hard leads to come to this community and she's responding to it? I mean, the $3,000 for postage is minimal. And the reason why I know this is because I've been here for 25 years. And Jan and I have been part of, and others that were with the French Colonial and the CVB, we put the money up ourselves to pay for these expenses out of our own pockets. We're not going to do that any longer. And that's why we have her and we have a tourism budget. The city should be paying for those hard leads. For them to say, well, we're going to take money out of your postage is ludicrous.
Well,
That's like saying to the fire department, you can't buy gasoline. Oh, there's fires, but you're not going to have any gas in your trucks. Now, that's ludicrous. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I will say that openly to any alderman that looks at it that way. You've asked her to do this. You've asked her to get hard leads, to get people to be interested in your community, whether it turns out that they want to buy a home, bring a business, or just come here as a tourist. Yet, we're going to take your money away. That's stupid. That's like we're going to have a building down there, but you can't turn the lights on. It's
They
idiotic.
haven't said that they're taking the money away. They've said,
They're going to cut the budget,
okay,
which says,
how many,
where do you
are our
stop
board
it?
leads increasing?
Yes,
Then tell them that. Show them the numbers.
Yes.
they
Don't-
have been, they have been shown.
Was it last year at the
Are
end? in
are these
October?
people, did
I
they
mean,
get through third grade or what? I just don't understand
I
that. Does
have-
anybody here not understand that?
Well, my comment would be that I think we need to present the value of tourism to a board of aldermen who are not represented by anyone in the tourism, entertainment, retail business. Just take away tourism. Just lift it out of the budget and see what happens to your town. You think you have too many empty storefronts now? Give it a year. And how many industries, what industry contributes as much to the tax base?
Or any? What industry do they have? What, streets doesn't bring you in any money?
Well, now you're gonna get, well, that, something said that last time, and Joe had a big argument, so, with the St. John Community Access Television. There are certain services provided by county, or by the city government that don't generate funds. They take care of road, sewers, water, things of that sort. in
Right,
general.
but the point was,
I agree.
property tax does not cover that, and just the local sales tax is not gonna cover the price for those services. Tourism is the one area that brings in money, that increases the general, or the tax revenue, so that these services can be provided. So there is a local benefit to having an active and funded tourism, both from the lodging point of view, from the restaurants. These are all value added to a community. And when you go out, if you go shopping at any of the stores, which I know there are a lot of people that go to Festus, they go to Farmington, they go to Perryville, because they want to go to Walmart. But anytime that I'm up in the stores and I hear someone saying, oh, I'm really looking for this type of item, hey, if you go to this store in the downtown, I cannot tell you how many times I have done this. Oh, I'm not going down there, it costs way too much. I'll just go out. You know, we have a lot of people that go to Cape Girardeau to go shopping, or to St. Louis to go shopping. You know, what the local 4,410 people are not enough to be able to make sure that streets are going to be maintained. Tourism is a vital aspect.
That's a great, I agree with you, and I think everybody here agrees with you. It's just how you sell it, and that's, I guess, all we're suggesting is sell it with some data that shows what is happening, that these numbers are going up. We are doing more hard leads.
Data has been provided. It was provided the last 2 years that I've gone through this process. And as Jan said, these are folks that do not have a business in the downtown area. They are not in the restaurant business. They
However,
not
we
in-
are their constituents.
Correct.
Yeah, does
Correct.
any business here in this town, is it owned by somebody in Chicago? or even St. Louis. They're owned by the people that live here. And how can somebody that's on the board say, well, okay, yeah, my brother has a business downtown and he's not doing well. Then why aren't you supporting him? Or my aunt or my uncle? These businesses are all owned by their own families. Are people that live here and contribute to the society. Jan and I don't have any children. We pay a lot of taxes, especially school and all the other things. I don't mind doing that. That's part of being part of a community. Where is the community effort on an alderman to say, I need to support the community? He needs to support his neighbors and the people who own these businesses that are downtown here.
And moreover, from a tourism standpoint, I've worked with a lot of entities in Jeff City and get to meet a lot of people like Stephanie meets a lot of people in the different organizations. We are the envy of this state, and everybody knows it. We have more to show, more to market. You know, if you get away from Six Flags and that sort of stuff. But in comparable markets, the CBB of Cape Girardeau is envious of us, for heaven's sake.
Perryville, Farmington.
Well, obviously, Festus,
Yeah.
Crystal City. I mean, even Arcadia Valley.
Right.
You know, so if we pass on the opportunity, we're just absolutely being silly. I think my point is, I am taking a more global look rather than a line item look, saying, you know, okay, 3,000 for this, 6,000 for that, 20,000 for that. For every dollar you spend on tourism, you recoup at least $2.50. It's a money generator. It's a profit center. It's a profit center. It generates money. And the aldermen need to get that from input from individuals and this committee.
And that was basically my point. I mean, the data has been given. They either don't understand or don't read the data. They need to hear from people who say, I own a business, and I own a business in the downtown, or I own a business anywhere in the city. And, you know, when we have fall and spring, spring and fall, we have a huge baseball tournament that takes place. Try going into McDonald's or Subway on those weekends when those kids are in town. You can't get in the door. So, I mean, even the uptown businesses benefit from the tourism that's generated. You know, when I travel, yeah, it's nice to go to new places, but every once in a while, I want something familiar. So I'm going to go to a McDonald's or a Subway or whatever, just so that I can have something normal, so I don't completely throw my system off, and that's part of getting old, and that's a whole other story. It's just so fun. But, you know, the support needs to come in from more than just me.
Right.
You know, it's going to take people coming out and just saying.
It's education.
When was the
It
last time
is.
you provided a report to the
That's an
alderman?
annual report that I do.
And when?
It's due December. It's with the state.
So they haven't seen data like that since December?
They get data on a monthly basis as for how many people we have coming in, passports. I provide them a monthly report, just so that they're kept up through the year. But I don't have time to provide that kind of report. I mean, this is a huge report to have to put together. I don't have the staff. That's another thing that was taken out of this budget. I requested another full-time staff member. I don't have time to do all of these different reports and put all of the stuff together and try to work on the co-op and try to work on our advertising and try to work with all of the different meetings that I have to go to, and at the same time maintain relationships both within the industry and with the different groups that are coming in, bank travel, media. There is just not enough time in the day. And so that was immediately cut out of my budget. That was cut out with the $45,000 that was cut out of the marketing that I required. So I am being asked I am not a superhuman. I have a family, I have a life, and there's federal laws governing employment. I am an employee of the city. I lose my vacation time because I can't take it. So, you know, that's not right. Just from that point of view. If I don't have the staff,
Well, if the
I'm
city's
limited.
if the city's not going to support it, then there's nothing you can really do. I mean, your hands are tied.
my hands are tied on what I can provide and what I can do. And I mean, I can think of several new things that were just sent to me this week that I have no clue how I'm going to fit into my time.
However, forgive me, I'm sorry, but this particular Monday meeting is
vital.
Yeah, this presentation opportunity has to be met.
It really does.
And I think that's what Bob is getting at, is that we gotta get the data in a format that we can feed it to them as an educational tool where they can't deny the viability of this industry and its benefit to the town.
That's if we can get them
To
to
the
understand
survival.
the data. I mean, because I have provided the data, I have provided the information.
Well, I'm just saying, we need to make a presentation. No extraneous data. Just the facts, ma'am.
Are you volunteering?
That's what was going to be my next question. I'm like, okay, I'm already planning on working all weekend as it is. I mean, if I can get help getting that put together, and then having
Sure.
it, the biggest struggle is going to be is having it presented in a way that they can understand, because this is not their background, this is not what they know. And that's been the biggest struggle is trying to, and I keep getting asked to take it down a few levels, take it down a few notches, and I don't know how else to take it down any further for them to understand. And I mean, it just really comes down to that's not their knowledge base.
Steph, I sent you a bunch of charts the other day, or
Yes.
spreadsheets. Those charts, you can lift those charts right out of there and show them those charts, then show what the hits have been coming on the website. If you know what your hard leads have been.
There is no way I'm going to have all of those charts that you sent ready by Monday. It's not possible, because even to get the information, to get someone to help me do that, I mean, there were like 10 charts that you sent me.
I'll just be honest with you, you have to put in, of those, I think just one number, and they will be all as current as we can get them.
They were all different items, though.
Yeah,
I mean, you
some of
wanted to
those are,
know-
some of those are quarterly things that we have the data since through June. Let's see if I can find that. We put a bunch of spreadsheets together based on data that she's presented in the past, stuff off of our the Google Analytics, and we can do total visits. They're up 54% year to date over last year, and you can see with the graphics that they're headed that way. Unique visitors up 50%, and it's.
So if that's already done,
That's
that's
already
great.
done.
Like I
Yeah.
told you in the email responding back, my focus has been on this budget and trying to get it together in a
Well,
way, and
yeah.
that I would look at that after I got past this.
Yeah,
But if that's already in,
Yeah.
I will happily provide that information.
We picked 8 downtown shops. They're up 17% year to date over last year.
This is what I'm talking about, education. You can't deny that kind of fact, factual information.
But all of that information's on those spreadsheets, and they're very easy to update. Once we get a number, we just plug it in. It does all the automatic calculations for comparison of the previous year's month and year to date. But I just took them out of the charts. But it's showing trends. Some of them are good, and some of them
Oh,
aren't
no,
good.
I'll happily provide. Like I said, I didn't have an opportunity to go through. I mean, I just kind of saw the charts and saw how many there were, and I just knew that there's no way I had time to do that.
It's set
But
up
if it's
so
already
that,
set up, that's fantastic. Thank you.
and there's one that needs to have that number for August on visitors isn't in there.
Okay.
You go
Yeah,
in the spreadsheet, put the one number in, it automatically redoes the chart
Okay.
and all the calculations.
Great. Yeah, I didn't have that number till last night, just because I've been out.
Well, the other thing that is encouraged, what I'd encourage you to do is to have your employees enter the individual data on a daily basis or a weekly basis. It's set up so you can put it in on a daily basis. Then it sums to the end of the month automatically. Then you can start tracking if you wanted to look at days of the week in terms of flow of people coming in. You can do that. It's just so it's entering 7 or 8 pieces of data a day.
Right, but this goes back to employees. 2 of my employees were hired at a time when the Welcome Center was purely a spot for people to start, and they were welcome. They do not have computer skills.
But can they write on a piece of paper and Tori at the end of the week enter the week's data so that?
If he has time, and if he's there on that day. Right now, I'm doing.
I'll enter it. If they can just on a daily basis give me 8
We
numbers.
have all that information. We have all that information going back. We have tally marks, and yes, we can do that. But from just a timing point of view and with a lack of staff, I'm doing the best that I can.
again, one of the things we've got to do is give you some help. I'm willing to help.
Well, you know, that was another question that I had approached to me by someone else saying, I own a business, I have a family, I'm already being volunteered to go out and do this, and now I'm being volunteered to go out and do that. You know, everybody here, yeah, make sure you ask before you volunteer their services. You know, because I've had members approach me directly, and I've asked, please go to Martin, please go to Bob. I can't pass on this information. But I can understand that concern because it's a very similar position that I am in. You know, I have a family, I have other obligations that I have to do, and this is my job.
Look, this is an offer for some help to you.
And I'm happy to have the help. I'm just, you know, you're volunteering people who have very busy
I'm volunteering myself.
things.
I didn't volunteer them yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah,
Yeah, but when it comes to staff, Stephanie, if your staff is not capable of doing those things, then maybe they need to be changed.
that's up to the Board of Aldermen.
You can't hire and fire somebody?
I cannot fire anyone. The only people who can fire are the Board of Aldermen.
Well, then you need to go to them and say, listen, they're not useful to me. They are great people, they're great employees, but I need someone who could actually do the work. And if they can't provide you that assistance, then we're paying them really for them to greet people. You know, you need to be able to delegate some of that work to them and know that it's being done the way that you would do it. And if they can't provide that, then
But we have to be very cautious. If they are not doing anything that I can't document as a problem, we have one person who has physical limitations. You cannot fire somebody for that.
well, you don't fire them for that. You make a change. I don't like to use the word fire. You make a change because they are not equipped to deal with the day-to-day activities in your office anymore. I mean, that if I wasn't doing my job, I would expect my board to make a change too. You know what I'm saying?
I do, but with it being city government, and this is a conversation I've had with Martin, and when they were hired, they are doing what they were hired to do originally. Now, there are changes that are going on within the system, and
It's
I
just
have to.
part of business, though. You know what I mean?
But this isn't a business. This is city government.
But tourism is a business.
But they're employed by the city government.
Well,
I think if we're going to have this discussion, it should be in a closed session rather than an open
probably
session.
so. I agree.
Please.
I just wanted to make
Yep.
that.
Are there any downtown businesses that are, you know, particularly passionate, that maybe they could come to that meeting Monday and?
I think all of them are. I'm going to put out an email to everybody.
Okay, that's a good idea.
I
Because I thought this was
apologize,
good.
I'm not going to be able to make it because I'm going to be out of town. But I
Carl?
will be there.
It is an open meeting.
Let me confirm.
Can you do that?
I certainly will, just a moment.
Most work group sessions are closed, aren't they?
I
I
No,
thought
not
work
all of them.
sessions were sometimes open, but the public was not allowed to make comments.
Yeah. Okay, let's find
That
out.
could be. If not, then I mean, my suggestion would be then call your alderman.
Oh, yeah.
You know, write them a note, write a letter, you know, make
Won't
a
get there
phone
in
call.
time.
You know, make sure that there's the
I think all
support.
the email
They all have
addresses
emails online.
are all online.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
no.
do they check them?
They better.
They run for reelection. They have to run for reelection.
I know.
We have about a half an hour here.
So ultimately, that was based, just kind of give you an idea of what we had, what I. Governor's Conference, very excited about the
Excuse me.
exposure that we've had. That didn't cost us a dime. And I worked very hard to get, and so I'm very excited that I was able to get these to go through.
Just a quick question, maybe you can answer it, not at this meeting, but the next meeting. You heard a lot of things at this governor's conference. What changes in direction you see that we do here locally, and what new initiatives should we be approaching? And again, don't answer it now, come back next month.
No, it's actually something I plan on doing. I have a couple of things that I would like to get done. It's not going to happen within the next month or two, because I need to pull in a few other people from the outside and
I think we'd just like to
schedules.
hear what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, that is my plan and my intention. One of the things I want to do is I want to get through the conference next week. So I think that's going to be extraordinarily helpful on quite a few things, and just provide data. And then another quick that I also meant, we had representatives from Brand USA. 2010, President Obama signed an initiative recognizing the importance of tourism to the United States. And they came in and gave a presentation. So this is one thing where even at the national level, that this is, we have so much of our manufacturing that's being exported, so many of our industries that are being outsourced to other countries, and that this is a resource that we have, that we absolutely should take advantage of, was one of the things. And then the governor was just talking about the importance of manufacturing output for the state of Missouri is $14 billion. Tourism represents $11 billion. So tourism for the state of Missouri represents a huge portion of the tax revenue to the state, and that absolutely would carry down to any CVB in business as well. It is a major money generator in tax revenue, which helps out in services for the local side. So
Good.
that was good information to have.
In answer to your question, yes, the meeting Monday night with the board is open to the public, and it starts at 6.
And participation is permitted?
I just asked Pam.
7 o'clock?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Is when you stepped out, staff made the comment, or, sorry, Beth made the comment that sometimes audience participation,
Well, when I asked
it's open
Pam,
but not permitted.
well, I asked Pam if, I told her that there were tourism council members that wanted to address the board, and asked if it was open to the public for that, in that aspect because of the
Okay.
tourism budget.
Right.
She said yes,
Okay.
so.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steph.
You're
I have
welcome.
a question for you,
Yes.
actually, completely unrelated to all this.
Okay.
I've been out of town traveling this week, and we drove through 6 states yesterday, and at 4 of them, I stopped at the state welcome centers on the state lines. Now, unfortunately, when I came back through Missouri, up north on 55 through southern Missouri, the Missouri one was closed, so I wasn't able to go in there. But each one, and I've never been in that one, but let's see, I went to Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and what was the other one?
Tennessee?
Tennessee.
No, Tennessee's was closed. It said closed, but there was actually no building there. There were bulldozers.
Really
close.
Oops.
Maybe it
Fix
was
that budget.
Arkansas.
How about Paducah?
I guess Texas. We didn't go through Kentucky. I guess Texas was the other one. And really nice welcome centers. And it looks like they're staffed from 8 to 5, and it's also a rest area, so they have restroom facilities. Is Missouri like that too?
Missouri does have welcome centers throughout. I know at one time they were looking at having this as a welcome center. I did bring that topic up at the governor's conference with some of the state tourism folks. At this point, if we were to go that route, or to try to go that route again, we would be what would be considered an affiliate welcome center.
I'm talking about
I think the
The
one, is
Missouri
it
one.
in New Madrid?
New Madrid.
Yeah,
Actually,
really
it's no,
nice.
it's
Yeah.
no longer New Madrid. They've
Oh.
moved it to Haiti, or High Tide, depending
Haiti.
on
High
who you
Tide.
do. Yeah.
My question is, since I wasn't able to stop and look, do we have brochures for St. Genevieve?
Oh, no, absolutely. Yes,
In
we do.
there?
Yes.
And
I drove them down myself.
are individual businesses allowed to take things into there as
Absolutely.
well?
Yes.
And does it cost the business anything to have it there?
No.
Okay.
Just your postage, just send it to them.
Just send it, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and they wanted cases, and I couldn't afford to
Steph has a
send
list
cases.
of places where brochures are sent, and she can provide
And
that
that,
with
yeah,
you.
absolutely, we'd be happy to.
I wish that we
Share
had,
that
I
information.
wish it was the right time for me to stop, because that's the one I really wanted to see,
I would just
was
encourage you,
Missouri.
I keep a box of brochures in the car, and if I go
Same
in a
here.
place and they're not there, I ask them, and here's a bunch.
Was
Yeah,
it just
I do the same.
past their business hours?
Yeah, it was
Oh, okay.
11:30 last night,
Oh,
so.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
thanks, Beth.
you're welcome.
Can we go quickly over some old business, anything on the ferry website? Tina? I know Ron was talking to somebody about setting that up. He didn't talk to
No
you
one's,
about.
no
okay.
one's given me an update on it.
Okay,
Wait,
signage,
wait, wait. I'm sorry. That was it? Did you
Well-
just ask about the ferry website?
yeah,
And that was it? Why can't we just do a button instead of a website?
the ferry is a business, they need to have their own website, they need to have their own telephone answering system.
Yeah.
The IDC gave them $450 to set it up 4 months ago.
Yeah.
And we still haven't got it set up. That's
That's my point. I mean, it's a lot easier just to set up a button, but you can set up a website in half a day from scratch. But you can't.
They wanted to take care of it, so
It's their business,
we let them.
so, but we'll keep pushing on that.
And real quick on that, if anybody does get phone calls, the ferry is down.
Yes.
And until we get like feet of water, it's most likely it's closed down for the year. So if anyone gets calls or people ask questions, because I know this is being played and I know we have community here, yeah, but the ferry is
Yeah.
down, just because of the water level.
Well, my frustration, and the reason I objected to moving forward without discussing it, is because it's been down for obvious reasons, but it's been 5 weeks probably now. It's pretty frustrating to people that don't know it's down,
Yeah.
you know, and they get here at whatever time and then realize they gotta go all the way to Chester. It's just- I'm
phone
just saying,
calls
I'm getting an
daily.
earful from
Yeah,
guests.
I get phone calls daily, and I know you
And
do
because
too.
their phones are actually forwarded to the
Right.
phone center.
Right.
And the money is available, and who is supposed to set it
Well,
up?
it's the-
Tower-
Ron Inman is the, yeah, I mean,
It's
he
the
operates
Port
the
Authority
Mid-Atlantic.
is in charge of that.
Right, and they were gonna do it, and they have somebody that's, from what I understand, that's going to design it for them, but I don't know where they're at in that stage.
I'm sorry,
So-
the tone of my frustration stems from the fact that I thought we were responsible for
No.
doing this.
No, we,
And like you said, it's been 4
we
months. since we
facilitated the
discussed it.
money,
Yeah.
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Wow.
Would it
Okay.
help if I could investigate getting it done, I mean, talk to Ron and say, here it is.
Go ahead with discussion with Ron Hornbooster, and I know he's had
Right.
discussion. Yeah, I think that's where the money, he worked that money deal.
Well,
with.
from IDC,
Yeah.
it would be Ron Inman who actually,
I would talk to Ron Hornbooster first, because there
Oh,
might be
sure,
something
yeah,
else
I-
going on there. The signage update, we are still waiting on the state for approval. I think they came back to ask for some more information on getting approval for the right-of-way that was set for new big signs. So we're continuing to work with them.
Can I comment on that before you move on?
Yes.
There's an expression that I'm sure everyone's heard, that all ships rise on an incoming tide. Getting back to the boat corollary, the gentleman from the Queen, the American Queen, his impression of the town, I think if we have the tourist-friendly orientation to the downtown area with the signage and have that cohesive signage throughout, that's the beginning of the process. I think, you know, as it becomes, and it all ties back to marketing too. You get the people in and they really like it, you know, you might get a new shopkeeper that says, and I'm going to put in a high-end shop. Well, then the people with the funky screen door or whatever their problem is, we don't want to name, I don't know who we're talking about, but somebody that has a less than desirable facade on their shop, their real estate values go up, you know? So they can chase improvement and a continual improvement. And nobody's going to walk around town and spank somebody for having a dirty window and say you're hurting the whole town. That's just not the way it works. It's continual improvement. And I think the signage is an important part of that.
We started with the general sign, directional signage. We're also have been talking about signs down at Highway 51 and H and 61 to kind of direct people coming across the
Right.
Chester Bridge. We will probably have to pay for those, get permission from the MoDOT to
Yeah.
put them in there right away. At the last meeting, we also started to move into the next phase, and that's how do we identify buildings and structures here in the downtown area. Did a little survey, how many buildings have, if you go in the past, in 1931, the Women's Club put up all these marble things that said this is the Senator Lynn House or the Jean-Baptiste Ballet House. There's one of those left. It's on the old corner of the old brick. Then came along, there were little metal brackets that had a little 8.5 by 11 description. There's one of those left. It happens to be on the Lutheran Church. And you go down there, it's on the right side, take a look at it. Then we brought these big signs that says Joseph Bogie 1810, that's the house, but we don't describe that. We had the walking tour that Chuck put together, we had the walking tour that Jordan Upchurch put together, but there's no identification on the building. You look at it, there's no street numbers, and half of the buildings don't even have street addresses on them. The other ones, there's no identification that says this is the Senator Lynn house or the Jean-Baptiste Valet house, and a description to go to it. We're not selling other than the Bolduc and the
Museum.
the museum and the Guy Board and Felix Valley. We don't even tell them that John James Audubon lived here for a while and part of that story. So we're talking about, and we're just beginning, we put a list together of which houses are kind of important and which ones we need some street addresses on. We're beginning to talk about what kind of little thing do we need on the homes that will give information to visitors walking around.
Here, here.
So that's kind of where we're talking about. And as the signage committee moves forward, that's where we're kind of headed. If you go to Franklin, Tennessee, and I know Martin was just there, on each of their special houses, they have a number, and you dial up, and you put that number in, and you get a brief description of what that house is all about. There's a company that puts this together. I don't know the price of it yet, but it's a way to interact with your visitor to give them more about St. Genevieve. And I think it's like you say when...
use QR codes too.
Yeah, and you can just pop it on there. I think we got to move towards that because like the visitors that came in for the American Queen, we don't have things like that that are going to interest people. So I just kind of wanted to bring you up to date on where we're headed. The next thing was the adoption of the new event listing recommendations. Have you talked to Chuck about what it would take to get that put on there?
I haven't heard from him.
Well, have you asked him how much it would cost or whatever to change that, to put the button on and the guidelines and the fill in the form thing?
I'll need to follow up. He had surgery or something a while back, and I didn't have a chance to follow up with him, but I will.
Please. Anything new on the Herald and Sun-Times reciprocal agreements?
Well, we're gonna do it. It's already on the Sun-Times.
Right.
It's on there. And I need to make a much smaller logo for the Sun-Times to put on the bottom of our tourism website. I talked to Jennifer at the Herald, and they don't have any logos on their front page or anything. Now, they do have a text link on their links page. And I think we already established in some of the data that we get a number of hits from them. So I would say we ought to put their name on the bottom too, a small logo just as we do the Sun-Times and the 798. So I'll get that rolling and get those logos to Stat to give the check.
Any other old business?
We talked about stuff for the commemoration of the flood and the Great River Road. I don't have anything new, but I just wanted to make a point to anyone who may be concerned about this. We are not celebrating the flood. There is nothing to celebrate. It was, obviously very devastating for this town and many people who lived here. We are commemorating, we're not celebrating, we're commemorating, and it's to teach people who were maybe too young to realize how they were affected by it, or visitors or people who didn't live here then, more of an education kind of thing, so not a celebration.
And you're looking for photos or
Yeah, any photos, anybody who has stories that worked, if you were there when the levee broke, or, we'd love to hear anybody's
photos.
point of view. That's it.
There was any other old business? Moving on to new business, we had wanted to have a discussion about amateur sports marketing, but I think because of time, we'll table that for next month.
I was gonna say, there I can give a brief overview and and then.
I'd rather
time to think about it.
have a time for a discussion on it.
Okay,
So-
well, the certification form was just released this morning by the state. And that's part of it. It's just part of the process, it's checking an additional box. The question was, do we have the facilities? Yes, we have a bike race. We already have 2, as I mentioned earlier, baseball tournaments. This is a natural area for bicycles and marathons, so I do think it is an option. Will it get us more money? Don't know. Don't even know if we will have a co-op next year. but I think it's worth trying.
I'd like to have a general discussion from the committee on this, including your packet is some of the guidelines for amateur sports marketing. It's supposed to be a national and regional, out-of-state directed thing, so I really want to table it until next meeting.
Okay.
And then also the visitor survey, I'd like to table that.
That's fine, and that's an easy answer. It's at the printer. It's never been printed. I've had it for some time. I've been trying to float it out. Haven't gotten a lot of response back. So I went ahead and I'm having some printed because we need to get something out.
And maybe next month, if you could tell us what your game plan is how to actually get those filled out and that sort of thing. So.
And that's the bane of every wisdom. Hopefully I'll have answers after next week's conference on that.
Okay. The other thing that I had on the new business is the Visit Mo website. I think I mentioned to you last month, Visit Mo puts out this nice magazine that they send to people. And in it are listings of businesses and activities and stuff. They also have an online listing, and I remember in what you gave to us, or what Stephanie gave to us on what her proposed marketing plan was for next year, was to do some advertising in visitmo.com. I think I mentioned last time that our listing on that website is really poor. It's in terms of businesses that are on there, primarily the B&Bs are well represented, the wineries are well represented, and in your package, put a list together and of what's on when they call up St. Genevieve, and you can call up the town, the events or the businesses that are listed there, I think it's called Current Listing on visitmo.com's website. And again, you can see that it's, well, the historic homes, the wineries and the B&Bs are the main ones. And I know that Stephanie sent out stuff to some of the businesses about getting on there.
Figure out all of these.
There's a list that's attached that's called the suggested additions to visitmo.com, like or targeted. I think it would be good if we get more people on there. We may have to do some hand-holding, working with some of these businesses, and that's where I'd like for some more volunteers to help go out and promote getting St. Genevieve businesses on there. There's lots of smaller towns that have a lot more listed than we have. And I think we're missing an opportunity for free advertising. So I guess my question is are you all willing to help we divvy this up to go out and try to sell, maybe have a little training class on how you get on. The businesses have to put them on, and they have to keep them up to date. But you go on that industry portal for Missouri Tourism Co-op, and we have a great opportunity to list St. Genevieve businesses. It goes out in 300,000 magazines a year. And I don't know how many website hits. They probably told you at the conference how many they
I
get.
don't have it off the top of my head, but it's an impressive number.
So can they sign up at any time, or do we have to wait till, is it
They can sign up now.
anytime?
Yeah.
But it's going to be in the fiscal year 14.
In the printed version.
It's the printed version, but they'll go immediately.
Online,
onto the
online.
website.
They go immediately, and I think that's where the benefit is because like Steph says, it will not. They've already closed June of this year for next year's magazine. So between December and June of 2013, they'll be looking for editions for the 2014 book. But it doesn't keep us from getting on that website.
Right.
I'll take M and O.
Pardon?
I'll take M and O, all the M's and the O's.
It's like, what's
No.
he talking
Yeah.
about?
Does that work?
Where is that?
Do you want to,
It's on the
do you
back
want to
sheet.
just divvy
It's
them
the
up and
back
decide
sheet.
it?
Well-
How do you want to do it?
That's just an idea, however
Yeah.
you want to do it. I mean, I think it's something we absolutely should do.
Especially those who are familiar with the setup on that. I mean, visitmo.com, they have done a lot to make that more user-friendly.
Still tough.
I tell you, compared to what it was 2 years ago, it is like a breeze, but it's still,
Well,
it is a long process.
Renewal is a lot easier than
Yeah,
first
once
timer
you're-
too.
yeah.
Right, yeah, once you get to the renewal.
I think maybe we ought to just have a little session about how you do
Just for
that.
our own self?
Yeah, how we do that and then divvy it up. I think last month I had talked about having a little brainstorming session, and I would like to schedule that at October the 5th, if that would be all right.
What day of the week is that?
It's a Friday.
I'm out of town.
Is it, are you talking Friday evening?
No, Friday, I was thinking about 10 o'clock on a Friday.
And I'm gonna be out.
How about Thursday that week?
No work.
I'm out the whole week. I'm at a conference.
I have meetings that week, that Thursday.
But you, I mean, you can have it without me if you want.
And I think you
Well, yeah,
provide,
so
both of
you
you
can.
provide valuable input to what we're going to
I'm
talk
out
about.
next week and the week after for conferences, so.
Hilton Head?
No, the next week's the transportation summit, yeah, and then the week after, that's my annual fall.
Well, the 19th is our, how about the 18th of October? It's the day before our meeting. Okay, why don't we plan at 10 o'clock on the 18th? We'll do kind of an overview of how you get online for this visitmo.com, and then do some brainstorming on what are the 3 to 5 things, big things that or initiatives we should do that could significantly make us a destination.
At what time is it?
10 o'clock?
So when?
How long is it?
How can, will you need internet access?
Or what?
Will you need internet access for that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
I don't know that there is a free connection.
Well,
There's Wi-Fi.
there's Wi-Fi, we can do it.
I was gonna say, I think Brenda told me there's Wi-Fi
I
available.
don't have Wi-Fi.
Oh, Did that change?
I thought it
the
said
switch?
I can't pull up Wi-Fi here.
No.
Well, I know it's.
Well, we got plenty of time
Oh,
between now and then.
well, either that or we can have it down at the services building.
Or you can have it at my office too.
Yeah, you have Wi-Fi?
Or, I know there's Wi-Fi at, the Mizzou Extension Office.
That's what I was at,
Yeah.
down at
Oh,
the
okay.
county
Yeah.
services building.
How long's the meeting?
I'd say 10 to 12.
So at the county services?
I'll have to confirm that with you,
Yeah.
because I gotta talk to them, make sure it's available that day. Just do a follow, okay.
You'll email us?
Yeah. And be sure to remind me to email them next week on that. Could you check with Tish and see if it's available to Pat Healy? And then email everybody. Okay, any other new business? Any other reports from committees at this point? John?
Unfortunately, Kelly Fowler was not able to join us today, but we're working with Stephanie on updating the town brochure, the visitor's guide. And we've got a lot, well, we always have to go through, this won't take long, have to go through the map and all the shops and make sure all the websites are right and the presence is correct. You know, if it's a new business, make sure that it gets in and so forth. That's really not that painful or difficult. We do have a new entity in the lodging side, so I would like to show you 2 examples of how we're going to, how we propose to handle that, and let
There's
you
2
decide
examples.
what you think would be best.
You're gonna need 2.
No, that's
He said there's 2
there's one
examples.
each.
Oh,
I mean, they're 2 different ones.
oh, okay, sorry.
So there's Carla's, that's yours.
So this is just a proposal to see, you know, we're just trying to make sure that that it fits the space, doing it the new way. It is 2 different pages I gave you. So there's the Le Coquerel bed and breakfast was not in previous printing, and the Triangle Inn was not in the previous printing. And these are 2 examples of how we can handle that.
Triangle Inn was in the previous printing, it just
Didn't
not
have a photograph,
the
right.
same
Presence.
coverage. Presence.
So we'd like to get your opinions on this so we can move forward with the graphic artist.
So one just includes Wilmar and the other one doesn't?
Well-
That's what I'm looking at.
Stephanie is going to talk to Wilmar. Their preliminary indication is they are not considering even themselves a tourism destination as compared to a more industrial or extended stay type. So they may, we just want to make sure that if we put the triangle in with a photograph, that Wilmar gets equal time if they want it, and if everybody agrees. But so far, the preliminary indication is they don't care to be in it. But I just did that to show that
Sure.
we can accommodate it if they did. Now, this is all dummy type, obviously, but that hotel and motels page,
We thought it was a new language.
it's an automatic button. Obviously, we'll, ask the designer to do something if Wilmar is not interested, to something to fill that space. And then, of course, we have to write, if you agree with the bed and breakfast panels, we have to do something to fill up that space under the title bed and breakfast inns. I just put some filler type in there to balance out 4 B&Bs on one panel and 3 on the other. That's all I have to say, so.
That's nice.
It's good.
Yep, good.
Fine. Yeah.
So when will you hear if Wilmar's in or
That's
out?
up to Stephanie.
Yeah, I'll go and whatever I do, I'm going to get it in writing.
Yeah, sure.
So it's just gonna be a matter of finding time, going over there. It should be before the next meeting.
When is this scheduled to be reprinted?
We don't need to worry about going to a printer in probably January,
Oh, okay.
unless we have a really huge response off of the budget travel. We've had a very good response, so I mean, we're still looking maybe December. We still have a pretty good supply.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not trying to jump the gun on it, but it does take time to get it all done and proofed and redone and reproofed and all
Right.
that. So.
Yeah, so now's the time to start working on it.
Well, so everybody's in agreement that those are decent layouts to go with?
Good job. 10 minutes. Entertain a motion to it.
Wait, I still have an issue with the electronic media.
Waiting till you said
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I still have an issue with the electronic media. Who's on that committee?
Dina, Stephanie, and Beth.
Now, I know that the website is owned by the chamber,
Yes.
but I would still like to request that we change the wording here, and it's been there for a very long time. Overnight in one of our historic bed and breakfasts, or if you prefer, one of our more modern inns and our hotels. I like to see it changed to spend a night in one of our historic bed and breakfasts, or if you prefer, one of our other fine lodgings.
Thank you.
Can I see it?
This subject was raised last month, and I thought,
No, a month before.
a month before?
Yes, I wasn't here last month.
I think it's objectionable the way it is right now.
I do too. I mean, first of all, he just told us that the biggest hits on the website are bed and breakfast. What did you say there was?
About 1,500 out of.
And the next highest one is
Oh, no, you're gonna make it.
700?
Yeah.
The next one was in the 700s.
It's 700, the next highest one. So we're greater than the next highest one.
By double.
By double. And I think if that's significant, not only the fact that, yes, the Triangle is not, a destination, and they're not bringing in any tourism dollars. And I don't just mean tourism tax dollars, I mean tourism dollars, because evidently the people that are staying there are not coming probably downtown, they're business people, or someone that's just traveling through the country.
Are we gonna do the same thing with the microtel then? Because Triangle Inn, she is wanting business, she's wanting tourists, and we do send people to her establishment.
To
Triangle Inn,
Triangle?
yes.
They've really changed a lot of things up there.
Oh,
They're trying to
absolutely.
make it a better,
Well, and there's no reason why
Yeah, they are.
And there
they
is
shouldn't be.
definitely-
But what I'm saying is that obviously the greater hits for anything are bed and breakfast. But when you read this way,
The only
would you
thing
rather
would
be
be-
in a more modern place, or would you rather be in a bed and breakfast?
But-
Or in a funky old building,
Yes.
is the feeling I get.
Just, I would sit down with those people. 67% of the tourism tax commission revenue comes out of the non-B&Bs.
And 64% of that comes out of one.
Yeah, so,
And I asked him about this.
This will
Yes,
not be
I asked
paid
him
for.
yesterday about this. I said, how do you feel about this? He says, I have no objection to that.
good. Let's roll then.
Okay, I was
Fix
gonna
it.
say the other thing,
I don't see
that's
why,
paid
but-
for by the city. That's not paid for out of Tourism Tax Commission.
I know.
I have no problem with changing the wording. I absolutely agree. There's actually quite a bit of wording on the website I don't agree with. But,
You have the ability to change it, or if you don't feel comfortable with changing yourself, go to the electronic committee. There's a,
when I have the time, I absolutely plan on it. And actually, if I could borrow the website committee after the meeting for just a few minutes for just thoughts.
What do you think about the wording, what I proposed?
If I had an objection to it, I wouldn't voice it right now, because I would just say, we don't need to take the time to think about it, we just need to get something fixed, because
Right.
this is derogatory.
Yes, and that's why we need
So
to do
just
something.
go with this, and then, as Stephanie's saying, I think the whole thing needs possibly to be reviewed.
Yeah,
So let's print out the text, review all of it, but immediately get this off.
okay.
Do you want me to take it?
just,
Give it to
Chuck
Chuck.
had sent me a note on the last month. There were 4,400 hits on the website. The last 30 days, about 1,600 were needs B&Bs. Attraction house tours were 950. Attractions wineries, 750. Needs directions, 715. Kind of interesting. Significant events,
Oh,
708.
wait, I have a question on that. How many of you, when you go somewhere, are using a Garmin or a GPS?
Lots.
All the time.
Change it on my cell
That I'm
phone.
not familiar with, yet they're still asking for directions?
Not all of us of a certain
But
age.
well, it's on your
have-
phone.
Some don't have
A good number,
smartphones.
Click to get the address.
Yeah.
to punch
How many
in.
of you have a smartphone?
But I do.
Put
That's
your
what I
hands
do.
up. I don't.
Yeah.
Okay, you can do it on a smartphone, yet they're still asking for directions?
We
a lot of people 700
learn-
people are
they-
asking for
They think
directions?
we're in the country, and a lot of people that especially visiting the wineries, they learn not to use your GPS out in the country.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
But there
that's
are also a growing number of mobile users
Mhm.
to the website.
Mhm.
1/3, for the past 2 months, 1/3 have been mobile. So it's people who are on the road, and if there's a button to hit get directions, it makes sense to get directions if you're on your smartphone. You know, so I mean, that could be a good, I mean, we had, off the top of my head, it was like 1,400 last month of mobile users using the website.
I don't have a smartphone, but my husband does, and the 3 days we were on the road, I cannot count how many websites I went to. If we were looking for a restaurant or whatever, and I would go to their website and I'd go to directions to get an address, and,
Well,
Maybe
that
that's
was-
what
yeah,
they're getting,
it's-
it's just getting an
yeah,
address.
well, I think so, because then
Yeah.
you have that to program into
Right.
your
Yeah.
GPS.
And I think that's part of why Chuck put the QR code on the on the visit center, or visit.com, because we had over 2,000 hits just off mobile devices
Right.
alone.
Yeah, and it's
So they're just
increasing.
getting an
It's
address.
growing.
Right.
That sounds reasonable.
Well, I'm going to throw something out, not to extend the time of the meeting, but with these numbers I'm hearing, it sounds to me like we need to be looking into building a mobile website.
And we have been,
Good.
and actually, this is another conversation.
Yeah.
To go into depth, because there's, with the city getting it, and,
Yeah, I don't know.
there's a whole other.
Okay. Is there any other?
I
Excuse me.
motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you all for the very good conversations, and thanks for your report. Encourage all of you who can, make it to the Monday night meeting, and try to present data that supports what we're doing.